I was thinking that retirement isn't a destination. Your retirement, you go your whole life and you're working and you're living your life, raising your family, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm going to eventually retire, like you're going to something, and that's the end. And when you get to retirement, you realize that that's really not the end. That, just like your life throughout your living before retirement, things change every 5 years, 10 years. Look back and see what's changed in your life over 5 or 10 years. All kinds of things can change. So, but it doesn't stop when you retire. When you retire, your desires change, your, what you want to do, where you want to live, relationships change, your families change, all kinds of things continue to change after retirement. So it's not like it just ends when you retire. Those things keep happening. So you have to be able to adapt. So let's talk about family changes. Well, I can tell you just from my own personal experience, all the things that have changed for me. I mean, tons of stuff before I retired, over my life, jobs, relationships, family situations, housing, all these things change. Well, what happened even since retirement? You have family changes, divorces, kids divorce, they move, all kinds of things can go different. For me personally, I had a house built on the same street that my daughter and husband lived. Now I ended up moving before them, but since then they've moved to another area. They got divorced, so nothing ever changes the same. What you think is going to be the way it's going to be in retirement, just you can count on the fact that it won't stay that way, so you need to just plan on that. The biggest thing is that you change in retirement. I've changed since I retired. I think it's just a matter of getting older. I see other videos, people talk about the same thing, that, you don't care as much of what people think. You don't care. I could have never done a YouTube channel when I was still working. I wouldn't have done it. But now that I'm older and retired, I don't really care. Whether people want to watch it or not. I appreciate everybody doing that, but I'm okay with, whatever I say. I'm good with it. It doesn't embarrass me, doesn't bother me. Matter of fact, I've had just the opposite thing. I've had very good response to my videos, and my subscriber counts have grown, and view time has grown. And I've actually started making money with YouTube. So, I've changed tremendously since I retired, and so I think you will too. Another thing that changes after retirement is your health changes. I mean, I guarantee you, when I was 40, I didn't give one thought to about, like what it would be like to be 70 or 80. And I'm approaching 67 this year. But I can tell you, I've had two knee replacements, thyroid removed. You're always having things crop up and you're just waiting for the next shoe to drop of hopefully nothing really bad happens, but it does happen to people. And so you just never know how your health is going to change. Your body slows down, your metabolism slows down, you get creaks and aches and things, getting out of bed is tougher. So people when they're in their 40s, I think, and I know I didn't, they just don't think about that stuff. It's like too far away. You don't think about it. But when you get there, you realize like, oh man, I got to start thinking about like what's it like now for me today at 66? What's it going to be at 76? Or if I make it that long to 86. So, who knows? I mean, I can promise one thing, it's going to get worse health wise. One of the biggest changes is housing. For me, I- I've done videos about how I sold my house, which was the house I had built on the street my daughter and grandkids were going to, it was before the grandkid was born, so that big plan didn't pan out. So I ended up back in a condo that I'd bought years before and I had it rented out. So I've changed housing, but am I like super happy in this condo? Not really. I mean, I'm happy financially because it's paid for, but it's essentially like living in an apartment, noisy neighbors. They come and go because it's in an apartment complex, a condo within that. And so, but you never know what you're going to get, so that part sucks and I miss my house. But, there's things like I might change again, like down the road. Like I think all the time about moving to Mexico or to another country or something to get lower cost or renting. I know a lot of people tout renting in retirement. It's great if you have the money to afford it, so but that's something that I think about all the time. And who knows, I might do that too. Let me tell you about transportation. I tried to go without a car. I did it a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago. I had a car, I sold it to CarMax. It was the easy process, went in, boom, they gave me a check. I walked out, I called an Uber to come get me, and I didn't have a car. And I did that for 3 months. And truthfully, financially, it was great. But, here's the problem. I live about 20 miles from my daughter and grandkids. And at the time, son-in-law was still in the picture. And that's not that far when you're just driving by car. It doesn't take that long. But without a car, now I got to take an Uber. So that becomes like an Uber for me to go to the doctor, which is very close to where I live, might cost $12. And you don't do that very often. And you can have everything else delivered, food, medicine, everything else I get delivered. So, it really worked out good financially, but except for if I wanted to see my grandkids, they typically don't come here anymore. But if I wanted to go there, it was about $37 each way on an Uber. So that's pretty expensive. And so that didn't last very long. I did that for about 3 months and then I bought another car. And I actually leased a car, and there's a whole story in that. You can find my video to that about leasing a car in retirement. So, but transportation, becomes a perfect example of all those changes colliding. So that's really all I've got to say about, retirement is not a destination. When you get to retirement, you're going to realize that things change just like they always have. And you just adapt and go with it. Do what makes you happy. So if you like this video, please subscribe and like it, and keep watching. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.